Warren Buffett never spends more than $3 on breakfast, lives in the same house he bought in 1958, and drives a $45,000 Cadillac to work. He's also worth an estimated $88 billion, making him the fourth richest person in the world. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly how he rakes in almost $50 billion a year. Let's dive in. So first off is non-investments. So I'm going to be breaking down all of Warren B's businesses into 7 categories. I won't be going over all 71 of his businesses, but I want to highlight a couple companies in each category that you probably had no clue that he owned. Let's start with manufacturing. So he has Brooks running shoes. Brooks, founded in 1914, originally manufactured these shoes for a broad range of sports. The company actually faltered and they filed for bankruptcy in 1981. In 2006, Brooks was sold to Berkshire Hathaway, and in 2011 became the leading running shoe in the specialty market. On its 100th anniversary with a 29% market share, Brooks' revenue hit $500 million and is on track to be a billion-dollar brand. Fun fact about this, Buffett does occasionally do Berkshire-Brooks sneaker drops. Custom tailored shoes include BRK, the Berkshire Hathaway stock ticker, stitched into the tongue. Hashtag swag, dude. Guys got game. Fruit of the Loom. So I am a Saks underwear wearer, but when I was growing up, I wore Fruit of the Loom. That's what my mom bought for me. In 2002, Buffett, who wanted the valuable brand, purchased Fruit of the Loom for $835 million in cash, nearly 3 years after Fruit of the Loom filed for bankruptcy. So he recognizes that the company faces fierce competition, but viewed it as a safe investment in a time-tested brand with strong market share. This is wild, and I didn't even know this, but in 2014, Buffett purchased Duracell from Procter & Gamble. Looks like for almost $5 billion. And he purchased Duracell for steady, predictable cash flow. You noticing a pattern here? So money from his manufacturing companies. In Q3 of 2020, Big Daddy Buffett's companies, the manufacturing did around 32% of Berkshire's total earnings before taxes. Based on our math, that's 32% of around $22.5 billion in operating profit, or $7.2 billion from manufacturing. He also owns retail and service businesses. Dairy Queen, yes, Dairy Queen. And every time you order an Oreo cookie blizzard, it's Warren Buffett standing behind the counter. The simple restaurant franchise appealed to Buffett, and so in '97, he acquired it for $585 million in cash and stock. With the exception of McDonald's, Dairy Queen franchises have actually amassed the most substantial wealth out of any fast food franchise that has more than 1,000 locations. Is that not wild? Are you surprised by that fact? This guy is just wild. I think he's like 200. I can't believe he's still alive. It's amazing. I hope he lives forever. Some other really interesting companies, like, it's fun to learn. I'm sure you guys are probably surprised. See's Candies does really well. He bought it in 1972 for $25 million. So See's has only required an additional $40 million investment, and it's generated upwards, get this, of $2 billion in profits for the Berkshire Hathaway conglomerate, resulting in an 8,000x return. Wow. So I think a lot of times when people are thinking about Warren Buffett, they're looking at his stock picking and thinking about the stocks, but he is actually making a tremendous amount of his money from owning the actual entire companies just like this. Another one is Nebraska Furniture Mart. This is one of the earlier ones he bought. It is the largest home furnishing store in North America. I had no idea. Selling furniture, flooring, appliances, and electronics, and was famously founded by Mrs. B, who worked there until she was 103. That's respect.
If I could start a business, and I had first draft pick, like in the NFL, of the 25 top graduates, or I could take Mrs. B to run the business, I'd take Mrs. B. There aren't any other Mrs. B's.
NetJets. So Berkshire Hathaway purchased NetJets, the fractional jet ownership company, in '98 after he became a customer in '95. Among other things, he was really attracted to the fractional jet ownership market and believed the potential for corporate clients, I need to fly private, maybe we can go somewhere, to shift from people flying in jet rentals. So the benefit to a NetJet customer is that they can use these jets without having to own or maintain them. I just use Southwest, it's cheaper. NetJets has seen excellent growth this year, signing up around 3 times as many new customers in 2020 as it did in the year before. For me personally, I have checked out fractional ownership. How much do you think it costs to fly private? It's a lot. It's about $5,000 an hour. So if you're flying from Austin to San Francisco and it's a 3-hour flight and you're doing a round trip, probably somewhere around the range of like $30,000 to $50,000. Money from his retailing and service companies. So it's really interesting to see the kind of businesses. They're tried and true, popular brands, a lot of key items, like most people have to have housing, most people have to eat food. Warren's retailing and service businesses did around 11% of his earnings before taxes. So it's around $2.5 billion in profit. So this is the main one, and this is the thing I want you to pay attention to. Did you know that Warren owns Geico? He bought Geico, and Geico literally has been his cash machine to purchase everything else that he's really done. Did you know that? So the insurance business is one of the best cash-making businesses ever. They take in all this cash, and it's legally required, meaning you have to have insurance. They get all this cash, and then he goes and invests it. What a deal. And that's actually what's funded a lot of his other businesses. Just to give an example, in Q2 of 2020 alone, Geico generated $2.1 billion in profit, almost entirely of the underwriting profit. So when you sell insurance, they only make money if you don't get sick or injured or an accident. So people did less driving, less traveling, general moving, and we legally have to pay for this insurance. Now he takes that money and invests in a bunch of other stuff, gets even more rich. So he bought the company, he bought it actually twice. He bought a little part in the beginning and then he finished the purchase years later. He paid $2.35 billion, which sounds like a lot until you realize he's made over $41 billion in profit just from Geico. Warren's insurance business accounted for 13% of his earnings before taxes, around $2.9 billion last year. If you are liking this video so far, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell, you good-looking person. I do weekly office hours for my viewers, as well as I gave away a Tesla and other crazy things, so make sure you subscribe and don't miss out. All right, energy. Who's got energy? My energy is actually much better than I expected it, given how much I partied this weekend. Berkshire Hathaway has an energy company too. What does he not own? This is crazy. Do you guys know that he had this? It serves 4.9 million customers across Texas, Michigan, Wyoming. Buffett loves energy because when you're as cash rich as Berkshire, you need a reliable place to invest billions of dollars at a reasonable rate of return. And Berkshire Hathaway Energy checks that box. It looks like his energy businesses make around $3.6 billion a year. Wow. He also owns railroads. He's like the monopoly guy. He bought a freight rail transportation business, BNSF. It's one of the largest operators in all of America. And he acquired it for $44 billion in 2009. At the time, this was his biggest deal ever to date, but it was a textbook example of his value-based strategy in action. Because railroads have major costs and environmental advantages over trucking, their main competitor. So when traffic travels by rail, society benefits. And since 2011, net earnings growth has risen by nearly 30%. It looks like from his railroad business alone, almost $5.8 billion that it generates for him. So quick recap, let's just take all the different businesses and look at how much money he's making from that. It's around $22.5 billion in operating profit. Around 32% or $7.2 billion is manufacturing. Services and retailing is around 11% or $2.4 billion. Insurance accounted 13% or almost $3 billion bucks. Energy accounted for 16% at $3.6 billion. And the railroad business, oh, man, it's so cool to own a railroad company, 26% or $5.8 billion. Before we get into the investment segment, I just want to thank you for investing your time watching this video. I hope it's helpful for you in your business journey. I love you. Investments. As I mentioned in the beginning of this video, he owns $215 billion investment portfolio, and roughly 70% of the value in Berkshire's total investment portfolio was concentrated in just 4 stocks. First off, Apple. So it accounts for 48% of his total portfolio. He owns about 6% of the company, which is worth around $109 billion. Apple has a dividend, so I think his dividend is somewhere in the billions of dollars a year from just owning the stock. The next 3 holdings that are his biggest pieces are Bank of America. It makes up about 11% of his total portfolio. He owns 15% of the company, worth $24 billion. So it'll be interesting to see how this performs over the long run. Next up is Coca-Cola. I was actually drinking a Coke Zero. Don't normally do it, but I did it for Warren. So it makes up 9% of his total portfolio. He owns 10% of Coke, $20 billion, and he reportedly drinks 5 Cokes a day. I think he likes the cherry flavor, which I do too. And its stock is one of his best performing over the last century. Let's look at the money from just his investment stuff. If you actually look at the following report, you're gonna notice something interesting about Berkshire's investments and derivative gains. In the first 9 months of 2019, they were $31.7 billion and 961. But however, within the first 9 months of 2020, they were only $1.2 billion and negative 561. So we don't have any Q4 data, but we're gonna go assuming in Berkshire Q4, the performance is gonna be similar to Q3. So let's actually do the math of his worth from all this investment stuff. It looks like he did around $26 billion overall in 2020. His derivative stuff actually lost about $540 million, but he's gonna still end up with a cool $25.46 billion a year. I think what's interesting about Warren Buffett, number one, is don't do the sexy stuff. I think it's easy for people to chase GameStop and chase all these things. It seems like he's very intentional. The second thing that I like his approach into business, and something we've copied at AppSumo.com, is create a core business, for him it was Geico, that generates the cash, and then use that to kind of try other experiments and long-term bets. So we have AppSumo Originals, we do YouTube videos, we have SendFox and these other different products, but we have a core business that does really well. Let's do a recap of how much Warren B is making over a year. His non-investments look to do around $22.5 billion. His investments are around $25.46 billion. So we have to have his grand total of yearly income, $47,960 million. So that is how the Oracle of Omaha raked in $50 billion in 2020. And if you like this video, you are gonna love this other video. Look at how Mark Cuban makes over $1 billion a year. These guys are awesome. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Go do that right now. And hit that notification bell to get notified of my next office hours. I'll see you out there, and I love you.